Hello, this is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. So now the Florida law SB 1718 is now in effect. And I wanted to take the time to address any of your concerns or questions about what is to come, what to expect, possible options, because now is the time to evaluate your options going forward, and there are many options. We have done work to find options for our clients who thought they didn't have options. And now they're in a winning position because they went ahead and took the steps to find out options. My point is, you may think you don't have options, but after talking to an experienced attorney, you're able to find those options. Now, we don't just look at, are you married? Do you have a parent who is a citizen? We look at the whole picture. What have you been through? What is your background? Does anything in your past experiences in life qualify you for options? Because it's not just about getting married to get status here, but there are other options, but that's going to depend on what your particular situation is. So today I'm going to dedicate this time to answer questions or any answer questions about any concerns you may have regarding the new law in Florida. You can also let me know what you're currently going through as you try to evaluate your situation. Now, you may not, the number one challenge that I'm seeing with individuals is they cannot get to work, right? That's the number one thing, because while you yourself can't be arrested or deported at the workplace, the the what the state law does is targets your ability to move around, your freedom of movement in the state. And so I'm finding that a lot of my people that I talk with, they are in a situation where they have an out of state license or they have an international license and they don't have their status. And so because of that, they have to either face the risk of being stopped by police, which nobody wants to be in that situation, or they stay home, and they don't work. So I'm not, but let me tell you this, right? If you're having problems getting around, and it does add an additional cost, but you have to find alternative methods. So some solutions here is that my clients, they may have relatives that are willing to take them to their workplace, or they may be able to Uber it or find cheaper mode or take the bus. So, even though it doesn't the fact that this law is inhumane, and it is really something that goes to the heart of how you need to support yourself. These are some alternative methods to get around where you will not be penalized. You won't be penalized for taking the bus. You won't be penalized for Ubering it. You won't be penalized for having your relative take you back and forth if necessary. Having your relative drive you around is not going to get your relative in trouble. That's a misconception with this law. The only time that the relative can face some penalties if the relative is driving with you from out of the state, and you cannot show that you entered the country legally. If you enter the country with some sort of visa, even if now your status is no longer valid, then you could still qualify. You can still go ahead and not fear being held or detained, or your relative being charged with a felony. But here's one thing you need to know about this law. With this law, you need to make sure that you are not working under somebody else's name, somebody else's social security number, and you are not working under a false name or using false identification, because now this law does result in a felony charge. So if they do find that you are working under false papers, that's going to that can result in a felony charge. And if you have a felony charge, that can backfire in regards to your immigration. It can render you inadmissible, in some cases affect your ability to get the green card. So you need to, and some people, for example, in some cases, if you're driving, if you're working in your relative's name, right? For example, you may be driving a taxi cab in your relative's name and not yours, and they find that out, then that is going to result in a felony. So you have to be careful with things like that. That can definitely get you into a trap. And then with a felony comes immigration problems. But if you don't run afoul of that rule, then you don't necessarily have to fear deportation, where the state can't deport you. So that's one thing. But I am finding that a big here is that the transportation, getting from home to work, is a very big challenge, because if you're driving with an out of state license, or if you are now, for example, in Florida, you can only drive with an international license for a year. And that's how many police officers are now looking at immigration status and the fact that you've been in the country for more than a year. And so they're also invalidating that international driver's license on that basis and saying you need to figure out a way to get your local driver's license. So that is also where you need to be careful, find alternate modes of transportation. And then there's that, because of things like this, it's evaluating whether it's even worth it. Because with it being so difficult, is it even worth it to be in the state? But this is where I help clients to evaluate what they need to do next. We talk about what's going on in their current situation, to see if they have any alternative solutions to get their work permit. But if push comes to shove, I'm able to advise a client thoroughly so that they can make a decision to leave the state altogether so that they can pursue opportunities elsewhere. And unfortunately, the state has to suffer because of that. So right now we're hearing about a number of individuals leaving in the workforce, leaving different areas. So in fire, agriculture, and hospitality, their immigrants are leaving in droves, and as a result, employers are hurting here. But what to do? I mean, it's not worth the risk for immigrants, and I totally get it here. All right. So go ahead, put your questions in the comments, because that's what I'm here for. I'm focusing on your questions. You can ask anything that's immigration related. I would love to get some about the new law and what you should expect in Florida. Now, one thing that I'm hearing a lot is can I travel to Florida for vacation? So, it's generally traveling to Florida for vacation is not addressed by the law. So, I can't hold you in the airport, because the airport is the airport is run by mostly the federal government. So you have TSA, CBP, that's federal government. If you're traveling with no legal status, the risk is never zero, right? There's always a risk, however small it may be. But individuals have been able to move around the United States without their status, as long as they had the proper identification. Now, once you get outside of the airport into Florida, then there's a question about whether you will be picked up, whether you're at risk. The answer is it depends. Are you coming here to work? If you're coming here to work, then that could pose some risk to you because, for example, if you have to drive to work, how are you getting to work? And if you're coming from out of state, you likely have an out of state license that is going to become invalid here in the state of Florida. Uh, Going to work alone is not going to cause you to be detained, arrested, or deported. But then you have to also worry about what when you start working for the employer, how will it affect the employer? What is the employer required to report to the state? Now, employers are required to report the immigration status of their employees if they have 25 or more, so over 25 employees. Otherwise, they don't have that reporting requirement, but it still does penalize people if they are found to be recruiting or helping an undocumented immigrant get work without authorization. Okay, let's see here. I'm going through. Hi there, Ethos. Nice to see you. How much does a green card case based on A5 approval? So I do not give quotes on live because the cases are different and I have to evaluate first what your case entails before I can provide you a quote. What I do is we start with a consultation and that allows me to do a detailed evaluation, make sure that you qualify, and then I can understand how I can help you first. Okay, good afternoon. If your mom sponsored you, can you come and do adjustment of status? It's going to depend. So if your mom sponsored you and you have an approved petition and now you have an immigrant visa number available to you and you happen to be in the US, then yes. However, if you can't, although you can't just come here and apply with just an approved petition, you have to have a priority date that's current to qualify for adjustment of status. When have a visa, how can I come to the US and go to school? So when you're here on your visa, you can always apply to the schools, but to actually attend the school, you'll need to have your your student visa. So you have to apply for that at the embassy, or you have to do a change of status. Now, the great news is that they are doing premium processing for change of status to F1, which is student visa, M1, which is a form of student visa, and J1. So that's the good news, meaning the premium processing, they can process it very quickly after you have done your biometrics. Can you explain the inadmissible section of the I-485 form? So if on the I-485 form, they have a long list of questions that in most cases, if you answer yes to it, it could mean that there is a basis to find you inadmissible. If they find you inadmissible, it means they can't give you the green card unless you qualify for an exception or some sort of waiver, forgiveness. So if you are having issues there and you want to have you have questions, this is where I highly recommend you get a consultation. So I got my work permit a week ago, but not my social security number. How long should I wait on it? Yeah, so we usually wait about 2 weeks. If we don't get it, then we go ahead and make an appointment at the Social Security office for our clients to go and get it. So usually it's just a matter of going in, showing proof that you have the work permit, and then get that Social Security sent to you. Dante has been here the majority of his life. He went elementary, middle, high school here, got his GED. His mother has her citizenship. Most lawyers say he must get married for citizenship. So yes, I don't know. I haven't evaluated his case, but I know in my consultations, I do very detailed a detailed evaluation, because yes, most lawyers, they find if it's not cut and dry, not straightforward through family, they will tell you that. But I look at the circumstances. For example, there's a T status that allows you to get status if you have ever been abused, mistreated, taken advantage of by an employer, by an intimate partner. And so I really dig deep into those kinds of situations to see if my clients qualify there. And I can tell you that it is one of those miracle workers for my clients, because where they thought they didn't qualify, they ended up getting immigration relief, and now they're on their way to their green card. It's a miracle worker, where other attorneys have said, go get married. Um, I have found other ways. It doesn't mean that every single person that comes to me is going to get that, but it is worth evaluating your options. And this is why I do my videos on a regular basis, because there's so many ways, so many forms of relief that people don't know about just because it's not popular. But I have made it my mission to get good at it, and to succeed for my clients. And because of that, I do have clients that are successful in the process. So this is where I have to leave it to you, though, to get in touch, and we can talk about possible solutions for you. If you're afraid that your spouse won't turn up for the interview, can you cancel the interview and refile VAWA? So you can always, I would say, there's nothing that says you can't refile for VAWA. However, keep in mind that once my experience is that once you have a spouse who is mistreating you and you have for VAWA, it means that that spouse is probably always going to be who they are. They're always going to mistreat you. You're always going to get to that result. They're not worth trusting. So it's always worth it to stay with VAWA, because it's your process. You have control. It doesn't involve the spouse, even though it's based on the relationship with the spouse. It is not does not involve that spouse. If you canceled VAWA to now get started with marriage base again, it can also add an element of complications to your case, because now if you cancel VAWAs, was it ever true? Because remember, any credible evidence is accepted, but now if there's a lot of bouncing back and forth, canceling VAWA, refiling VAWA with new statements, new applications, then that can possibly be used against you in the future. So it's not a strategy I would necessarily recommend. And my experience is, usually if you're applying for VAWA the first time, it's the right way, because it means that this situation was so unbearable with this spouse that you had to go that route. And so if you're now having a change of heart, because maybe you feel like the fire is not going fast enough, you're just putting yourself back into a compromising situation with that spouse, and giving them something over you, because when you have a spouse who is using the immigration status against you, they're not dependable. You don't think they're going to show up one minute, then they're going to show up the other. They're always going to have something over you. And take it from me, while I'm not a therapist, I have myself one marriage. I have observed this time again with my clients, they never fail. They will not change. I did interview for N400, and they asked for some evidence, which I sent, but they haven't updated my case stating that they received evidence and tomorrow's the deadline. Sometimes they don't update it. Get in touch with them, and make sure they got it. Hey, can you explain the Indivisible Act on the Form 485? So I already talked about that. But if you have any specific concerns on that form, don't go ahead and file it with your doubts, because I've seen into trouble answering questions that they didn't understand and then being nailed with a misrepresentation charge or being denied for their green card. So do not answer any questions on that form you don't understand until you talk to an attorney. And we're here to help you with that. All right, last 2 minutes for questions. Go ahead, put your questions in the comments. To close, I'm just going to talk about the Florida law that's now in place. It's the anti-immigration law. And you have droves of immigrants who are now leaving the state, leaving the workforce. This can only lead, unfortunately, to bad results for employers. But what I want to do is help immigrants through this situation to find solutions, because there are solutions here. I've talked to a number of people just today who have very strong cases in situations they thought they could not qualify. So go ahead, give me a call and let's talk. If I want a consultation with you, what would likely be the easiest or I think the earliest date? So I'm not in charge of my schedule. My staff is, so they basically put everything in place. They will be able to tell you. So give them a call. They'll be more than happy to help you to get a consultation. I tried to call, but I can't get through to anyone, only machines. So usually we all have live people answering live. So something, I don't know if we'll have to test the phone systems. If you would like to I'll call you back, go to the DM, give us your name, your number, and we'll be sure to call you back. But we have live people answering. We don't have machines answering the phone. So I don't know. Make sure you're calling the right number. All right, so I have to head out. I'm heading back to appointments and the work we do for our clients. So go ahead, schedule your appointment so we can talk about possible options for you, because they are there. It's just to find it. And that's what I've made my mission is to find those options for individuals. All right, so have a good one. So one DM appointment, same week. Go ahead, give us a call. Send us a DM and with your name, your number, and we'll give you a call back. All right, and then the staff can help you to set the appointment. Have a good one. Bye-bye.